Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I was going to talk about our Prime Minister's collapsing career, but instead I want to talk about something else, and it concerns a speech that was given a few days ago to the Centre for Policy Studies by our Brexit negotiator, David Frost, who I prefer to refer to as Lord Gormless. This is a quote from Frost from 2016. He said, about 40% of what we export goes to Europe. If we leave the European Union, then we're going to see administrative barriers brought up. If there is a Brexit, we will lose access to the European Union Free Trade Agreement. That is clear. If the UK will then need to renegotiate its own agreements, clearly that is going to take time. Our interest is to be part of the biggest possible market with the fewest possible barriers. The European single market gives us that. The European free trade agreements give us that. Why would we want to depart from that? So this genius gave the keynote speech to the Centre for Policy Studies conference a few days ago. Now, the Centre for Policy Studies is a think tank, and they're obviously full of quite clever people, and so Frost was invited as a star guest to give them some of his wisdom. Fairly early on in this speech, he said, I'm a bit of a free speech zealot on every subject, not just trade. So here's some free speech. This man is gormless, he's incompetent, he's inept, he's completely out of his depth, he's extremely undiplomatic for somebody who was previously a diplomat. He's a complete fool. This is a man who negotiated an agreement, much trumpeted, signed by him and the Prime Minister, which within a few weeks he wanted to renegotiate, and who was so stupid, instead of going back and asking if he could renegotiate, he started insulting the other side. See, it wasn't working, he didn't like it. And started writing articles in newspapers saying how unreasonable the other side was, and who is now threatening the other side. Threatening the EU with his Article 16. This is a man who is really, really stupid, completely out of his depth. And yet, of course, he was rewarded for his incompetence, for this ridiculous deal. Made a lord, seat in the cabinet. And this, unfortunately, because he's a small-minded little miserable little man, it's gone to his head. And now he thinks he's king of the world. And he's going round giving everybody his wisdom. He really thinks he's a diplomatic star. And so I wanted to look at this speech that he gave the other day, because it contains in it all sorts of clues as to why we're in the mess we're in, why this whole Brexit is such a disaster, and why it's going to be so much worse next year. Because it's all based on airy-fairy nonsense. Just slogans and gibberish. And this man, he's an absolute master at gibberish. So I want to read and comment on a few of the things he said. He said that now that we've left the EU, our destiny is in our own hands, and we have to step up and compete at a global level. It is no longer good enough to be the most attractive economy in the EU. You see, a place like Germany, Italy, France, Austria, Sweden, they're not attractive countries. We're the attractive ones. Everybody wants to come here. It's not good enough being most attractive in Europe, though. We have to now be the most attractive country in the whole world. See? We face global competition, and we have to benchmark ourselves against the whole of the world. That is a big challenge for government as well as the private sector. Yeah, So we have to benchmark ourselves, or the government has to benchmark itself against the whole world. And private sector also, they have to benchmark themselves against the whole world as well. Now, I'm not quite sure what that means. I know where the term benchmark comes from, but why are we now benchmarking ourselves against the whole world, whereas before, when we were in the EU, we couldn't, were we not able to benchmark ourselves against the whole world? Can't understand that, really. But then he goes on to self-delusion. And that is why I have the job I have, trying to ensure there is consistency between what's required by our agreements with the EU, by our free trade agreements with other countries, and by the programme of domestic reforms that our new freedoms make possible. What domestic reforms are we able to carry out now that we couldn't when we were in the EU? What? I mean, it's his job to apparently to supervise all this. I mean, what programme of domestic reforms? What's he talking about? But then comes something which is just really quite extraordinary. And really, listen to this. My job is to drive change within government, to push policy in the right direction. You see, some people thought that there was some sort of cabal of ultra-rich people who were somehow manipulating the government. Some people think it's Rupert Murdoch. Some people think it's Vladimir Putin who's somehow in the background manipulating everything. But no, it isn't. Lord Cornwallis himself, his job is to drive change within government, to push policy in the right direction. Never knew that. You see, you live and learn. So he's in charge of everything. He's sort of like an emperor, really. Not only does he have to drive change within government and to push policy in the right direction, but he also has to overcome the forces of entropy, laziness, and vested interests. I don't think there are any vested interests in British government, are there? Sounds unlikely. What Brexit means for the future is dependent on whether we can seize these opportunities, whether we can liberalise, free up, create competition on our own market, create the conditions for innovation and productivity growth. All these things which we could never do when we were being ruled by civil servants in Belgium, unelected civil servants in Belgium, as this unelected civil servant who's changing the world tells us. We couldn't do any of these things. We couldn't get involved in competition and productivity growth. No. Only leaving the EU has made that possible. Then he explains a little bit about how this is going to happen. He's talking to a think tank, people who are presumably pretty intellectual. We are liberalising the growth areas of the future to open them up to greater innovation in data reform, gene editing, transport, medical licensing and devices, artificial intelligence and more. You see, we couldn't do this in the EU. You couldn't liberalise growth areas of the future to greater innovation when we're in the EU. It's only now we're able to do these things. And then he gives us a clue as to really how it all happens, the mechanics, because this is really quite important. Listen to this, this is really important. We are making changes to the nuts and bolts of many of the core frameworks underpinning the economy. You see, that's pretty, I don't know if he uses a spanner or not, but changing the nuts and bolts of the core framework that underpins the economy. I mean, that is what we were all voting for, really. I'm quite sure we wanted to change these nuts and bolts. And then he says, we are phasing in our new domestic agricultural regime. Now, I didn't know that there was a new regime being phased in, but it seems there is. And I'm assuming that part of this is replacing locally produced lamb and beef, with lamb and beef shipped in from the other side of the world, from New Zealand. I'm assuming that's it, which of course will put a lot of sheep and dairy farmers out of business. I think there's a slight glimmer of hope here, because apparently, according to an article I read recently, our beef is better quality than the beef we're going to be importing from New Zealand. And it's thought that there may be a market for our higher quality beef in China. So what we'll do is we'll import the poorer quality beef, which we'll eat ourselves, and all the better quality beef we'll send to China if we can, if they'll buy it, which will be nice. And so some of the farmers won't go bust. As far as the farmers growing fruit and vegetables, well, they've all had a terrible year this year. I don't know whether it's part of the phasing in, but they've been unable to find workers because, of course, low-paid, low-skilled workers are sort of prevented from coming here by the new regulations imposed by Lady Macbeth at the Home Office. And so a lot of these fruit and vegetable farmers have lost a lot of money this year, and they're not going to grow fruit and vegetables next year. If you've had to watch your harvest rotting in the fields, I mean, you're not going to say, "I'll have another go next year and hope it's better." You're not going to do it. So they're not. A lot of them will go out of business. A lot of them will just close down. They'll sell their farms and so on. And I think this is something which people are not yet aware of. There are going to be some big food shortages next year, because local produce is going to be a lot less than it has been this year, even though a lot of it's been rotting in the fields. And at the same time, next year we have to impose import controls on goods coming in from the EU, and so a lot of Spanish and French farmers are simply not going to go on exporting to the UK. So there are going to be a lot of price increases with fruit and vegetables. I'm expecting next year. I think it's almost inevitable. And I suppose, I don't know, we're phasing this new regime in. I'm not sure what the regime is. Perhaps he could explain to us, but I presume the regime eventually is that loads of Chinese people will come here and they'll buy up all the farms, rip up the hedgerows and plant huge, great fields, and then they'll mechanically harvest food, which they'll export back to China. I guess that's part of the phasing in. That's where we'll get to when the new regime is phased in. Then he says he's now listing the advantages of leaving the EU and all the wonderful things that are happening. He says the immigration system has been reformed to give us much greater control over who comes into the UK. Now, I don't want to dwell on the terrible tragedy that happened this week in the Channel, but all these people crossing the Channel are as a direct result of Brexit, an absolute direct result. There's no other route in. We have a Home Secretary who just believes that the way to deal with any problem is punishment and bringing in new laws. A woman who wants to criminalise rescuing drowning people, if they're asylum seekers. And this whole immigration thing it's an emotive thing. People get very excited about it. We're a country that is an ageing population. We are going to need more and more people coming into this country. We are desperately short of lorry drivers and care workers and hospitality workers and abattoir workers and all these other people we're short of. But we have imposed a new system whereby it's virtually impossible for any low-paid worker to come to this country and work, which is what Mrs. Pol Pot at the Home Office wanted. Now, she, as you know, there was a shortage of drivers, and there was great concern about delivering turkeys and presents for Christmas and so on. And so a scheme was brought in whereby it was agreed to allow or to issue 5,000 visas for lorry drivers to come here to work from, I think it was middle of October until 24th of December, by which time they would have to leave the country or they would be here illegally and would be deported. And after a while, this was generously extended to the 24th of January. So these lorry drivers from all over Europe were allowed to come here for a couple of months. 5,000 visas were on offer. It's a bit like sort of 5,000 lottery wins, really. I mean, the chance of coming to the promised land to work for 8 or 10 weeks delivering goods for us was it was just a dream come true. It must have been for so many people. So many, in fact, that I think it was either 17 or 27 applied for these visas out of 5,000. And I'm not sure whether any of those came. Maybe one or two are here. Maybe they're coming here because they've got a girlfriend here or something. I don't know. But not exactly beating our doors down to come here. Now, this our Home Secretary, this woman. Incidentally, I did a video. I'll put a link down below. I did a video just about her, and it was my most successful video. But in it, I explain how. I think she was. It's said that she's broken the ministerial code twice. I reckon it was more like 6 times. But anyway, if you've got 5 minutes to have a look at the video, please do. I mean, she really is a dreadful, dreadful woman. Anyway, she's always wanted the brightest and the best. You know, everyone in the world wants to come to the UK. Everyone. So we can't let everybody come. So we're going to pick the brightest and the best. And so she decided to issue what is known as a global talent visa. And this would make it easier for really top people. She mentioned particularly Nobel Prize winners and so on to come to the UK to work here. And this is what she said when she announced this scheme. Winners of these awards, and they would be winners. I mean, if you get the chance to come and work here as a Nobel Prize winner, you're winning the lottery of life. Winners of these awards have reached the pinnacle of their career, and they have so much to offer the UK. This is exactly what our new points-based immigration system was designed for. See? Attracting the best and the brightest based on the skills and the talent they have, not where they come from. No. We've already established we don't want the riffraff coming here. Above all, we don't want the Europeans here. But we don't want riffraff from anywhere, really. We just want the brightest and the best. This was announced, this global talent visa opportunity, 6 months ago. So far, the number of applications for this visa are 0. And then Lord Gormless goes on. He said, all this will facilitate the shift to a high-wage, high-skill economy. You'll remember a couple of weeks ago, high-skill, high-wage was the catchphrase. I think it was at some conference or other. Was it at the Tory conference? I can't remember. Anyway, that's the new thing, high-skill, high-wage. So all this, this reform of the agricultural regime, these new visas for all these talented people and so on, it's all part of this transformation of the economy from low-wage, low-skill to high-wage, high-skill. There is a question here. I don't know if anybody can answer this. Maybe put an answer in the comments below. Why is it only now we've left the EU are we able to transform our economy from low skill, low wage to high skill, high wage? What happened? What is the difference between being we've been in the EU for 45 years. Why couldn't we have transformed our economy to a high wage, high skill economy at any time during the last 45 years? What has changed? But anyway, apparently that's one of the reasons why it's such a good thing that we left the EU. And then he concludes, he says, this is only the beginning. We must keep challenging ourselves. You see, he's inspiring us. We must keep challenging ourselves. The most attractive economy in Europe is not good enough. We must be the most attractive in the world. It's all too easy to get captured by the interest groups and the lobbies. Now, it's just silly, isn't it? I mean, can you imagine in the British government, special interest groups and lobbies trying to take advantage? I mean, that is never, ever going to happen. No. He says it won't happen here. I don't know. He says, we don't have time for that. Oh, no, we don't have time for that. The world is not standing still. No one owes us a living. earning one is now fully in our own hands. See, got rid of all those civil servants in Belgium telling us what to do for all these years when we haven't even been able to say a word. Unelected civil servants in Belgium telling us what to do. Now we're free. Earning our living is in our own hands. Freedom is intoxicating, isn't it? The formula for success as a country is well known. Low taxes. I agree with the Chancellor. Now, the Chancellor is going to be very, very flattered that the man who's driving the government and driving government policy thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks he has the right view that lower taxes would be a good thing. Our goal must be to reduce taxes. It's nice that he's covering all areas of government, isn't it? You know, he's not just business and taxes. Incidentally, he's never had a day's business experience in his life. Lifelong diplomat. Ended up, I think, as an ambassador in Denmark or something. And then he became chairman of some whiskey distilling federation. That's all he had no experience of business whatsoever. And yet he is negotiating the most important trade deal, probably certainly in our history. It's a massive, massive deal. And he's doing it by... the man is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. It's more free speech, Lord Gormless. So we must have low taxes. And I think we've probably got the highest taxes we've ever had right now, haven't we? So anyhow, this is the man who's responsible for us being in this mess we are, where we're at loggerheads with the EU. I mean, if he's this dim, this stupid, if he's prepared to utter this utter rubbish before a think tank, I mean, heaven help us what he's doing with Northern Ireland. But never mind, he'll go on threatening them all, telling them how that they're all so unreasonable for not immediately renegotiating a deal which he worked so hard to negotiate and for which he was made a Lord Gormless. Anyway, that's what I think about him, and I'm sure being a free speech zealot he won't mind, but if you've watched this far, thank you very much indeed, and until next time, bye for now.